All right, thank you very much, Vincent. Those terrific comments. Please convey our thanks to Secretary Zinke. I think we're all extraordinarily pleased with what he's achieved so far. My name is Joe Bast. I'm the CEO of the Heartland Institute. Jim Lakely thanked a lot of people. Who did he thank? He thanked the hotel staff, the Heartland staff, the speakers, and Heartland donors. So I won't repeat all of that, but I would like every elected official in the room to stand up, if you could, just for a minute. If you're an elected official, yeah. It's terrific. You guys are doing a tremendous service for your country. Many of you are not paid much at all, so this is a real duty to citizenship. So we really appreciate your sacrifices and appreciate that you'd come out here for this conference. In his America First energy plan, Donald Trump articulated a vision of America that was made safer and more prosperous thanks to the promotion of fossil fuels. This conference looked at that plan, brought together experts from around the country, economists and scientists and lawyers and others, to see if what he said in that plan was true. If, in fact, we could become energy dominant. If, in fact, we could do that while still protecting the environment and protecting public health and all the other things that we're trying to achieve. I think it's safe to say this conference concludes that every point in the America First energy plan is accurate and correct and true. The data support what the president set out to do. Looking at the program for today, Energy and Prosperity, the president said energy is an essential part of American life and a staple of the world economy. Absolutely right. Energy is the master resource. It's the key to everything, the key to prosperity. 85% of that energy comes from fossil fuels, and probably will be in the year 2040 and probably the year 2050 and even beyond that. We talked about energy and national security. Boosting domestic energy production is in America's national security interest. We had speakers talk about how trying to promote global warming and other objectives through the military was taking money away from where it was needed in order to make America safe and secure. The best way to secure the United States is to make sure that we have energy security, and that comes from fossil fuels. We talked about protecting the environment. The president said, our need for energy must go hand in hand with responsible stewardship of the environment. And we've shown that that is possible, that you can develop fossil fuels in a way that's entirely safe and beneficial to the environment. In fact, affordable energy makes environmental protection easier and more possible. The wealthier a society, the more it invests in protecting its environment. We talked about the shale oil and gas revolution. The president wrote, the Trump administration will embrace the shale oil and gas revolution to bring jobs and prosperity to millions of Americans. From the first presentation to the end of this conference, we've been hearing about the fracking revolution. And it's just amazing, right? It's just incredible. The increase in the reserves and the resources that we have in the United States, thanks to fracking, is just amazing. It's a game changer. It makes us dominant in the world as an energy producer and coming soon a net energy exporter. And finally, a peace dividend. Donald Trump said in 2016 that he would save taxpayers $100 billion over 8 years by cutting all federal climate change spending. Now, it turns out he was wrong about that. He was off by a digit. He's going to save us $1 trillion, not $100 billion. And we can thank Kevin Diaratna, there he is, yes, for documenting that. And we're going to see some more research documenting what the peace dividend is. When you end a war, the patriots, the winners, get a peace dividend, right? So when we end the war on affordable energy, we ought to get a dividend. And that dividend is going to be billions of dollars in economic growth and benefits from lower energy costs. So on these points and many others, I think the America First energy plan has been shown to be absolutely correct, and it's pointing the country in the right direction. It is such a relief from the last administration. Many of you have suffered negative consequences from the war on fossil fuels. Many think tanks have been marginalized. Many of us have been personally attacked because of our views on this issue. It's been a really tough 8 years. And we've seen the English language get abused in incredible ways. I mean, carbon pollution, really? Carbon pollution? Climate deniers. We hear about 97% consensus, something that every high school kid can pick apart. Really, 97% consensus. I mean, and we had the President of the United States repeating garbage like that. We've had scientists physically attacked. Yesterday we had John Christie here, Professor John Christie, and he showed us a picture of him standing by his office window. As many of you know, at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, 7 shots were fired into the windows of his office. I mean, that's what happens when the President of the United States demonizes individuals and movements and people who disagree with him. So to have the President of the United States turn his back on that ugly, ugly chapter of anti-energy rhetoric and propaganda is just a tremendous relief for all of us. We've seen tremendous progress. Vincent was describing some of these things. Rescinding the social cost of carbon was just an amazing thing that we were so happy to see. It happened just, I believe, a week or 2 weeks after our climate change conference earlier this year. And not only did the President, by executive order, say we are no longer going to endorse these estimates of the social cost of carbon, he said we hereby disband the government entity that created them. So don't ever come back with any more of these estimates. It was a great thing. He took us out of the Paris Accord, or is promising to take us out. The Waters of the U.S. rule, the Clean Power Plan, the rules on fracking, ending sue and settle just in the last 2 weeks, putting some really good guys on the Science Advisory Board. That's just a tremendous thing, rolling back other regulations. It's just a remarkable thing. We still have some ways to go. Okay? In 1 year, no president could repeal all the damage that was done, not just by 8 years of Obama, but frankly, many administrations before that, because the war on fossil fuels began under Republicans, not under Democrats. So it's a bipartisan shame what's happened with energy policy. But going forward, we need to see a few things. We need to devolve the authority of EPA back down to the states. Cut the budget by 31%. As the President proposed, cut the budget by 31%, save some of that money, give it directly to the states, and let the states take on their historic responsibility for protecting the environment. Protecting the environment doesn't appear in the U.S. Constitution, okay? It is not one of the enumerated powers, so why do we have a massive government agency at the federal level that's trying to preempt state efforts to do the right thing? So that's hugely important. We are never going to get the foot of environmental radicals off the neck of our economy as long as we have an agency called EPA that has a massive staff that is spending billions and billions of dollars subsidizing radical environmental groups on the left and regulating every form of energy in America. So we got to do something profound about EPA. We got to restructure it, not just reform it. We got to shrink it, restructure it, take away its major powers, and decentralize it. We need to get rid of the renewable fuel mandate. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Since I don't expect ever to be nominated for a position where I have to be approved by Congress, I can say this. Ethanol is a scam. It's absolutely horrific, and we ought to get rid of that. And very quickly, let's see, cut grants to liberal advocacy groups. EPA has finally started to do that. That's a great thing. I think you're going to see a really large-scale defunding of the left in the years ahead. On air pollution, we didn't talk a lot about that, but we need to end reliance on secret science. It's absolutely disgraceful that environmental regulations like the Clean Air Act are based on science and databases that aren't made available to all scientists who are willing to challenge that. That's got to be opened up. We got to end this linear no threshold model that says that if this much pollution causes this many deaths, that means even one molecule of pollution somewhere around is going to cause a certain number of deaths. It's ridiculous. It's not the way science works. It's not the way that epidemiology ought to be interpreted. We got to get rid of reliance on small risk ratios. We got to get rid of these huge safety margins. At a meeting yesterday, we were talking about how EPA sets the lowest safe dose. There's a reference dose, the reference dose, 10,000 times below the lowest observed effect on human health for safety measures. They multiply it by 10 and then 10 and then 10. Yet now you're 1,000 times below what science says might pose a human health threat. So we got to get rid of that as well. So we got a lot of ways to go. I may not be there with you when you guys climb that mountain, because Diana and I do plan to retire in January, maybe in May if Tim Hillskamp has his way and somehow ropes me in and chains me down to my desk. But I think Diana and I are going to retire sometime in January. We will probably be back, maybe not as Heartland employees, but maybe sitting in the back of the room listening to the presentations. So I am absolutely confident that Tim Hillskamp is going to keep this train running on time. He's a great guy. I hope you give him the kind of respect and support that you've given me for the last 33 years. And I understand there's a cash bar on the other side of that air wall. So by all means, go and get drunk and have a great evening. Thank you.